Welcome to the Pure Light Project podcast. My name is Andrea Mai, and today I'm hanging out with a really fun and beautiful heart that I met at a podcasting event in Orlando a few weeks ago. I don't know, maybe it was a month ago, but called Podfest. And so Seph Dietlan, I already forgot. Dietlan.
You got it.
He squeezes in. We're in the author. There's a table for authors, and he comes, and we're pretty close, and then two more come up, and so he lands right next to me, and it was perfectly aligned, divine spacing for him to show up next to me. And so Seph is has a gift of speaking with angels, and we're going to get into that, and he's going to share his story here. But beyond that, let's just start with hello.
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 Good day. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we were talking before this. He's in a little snowy weather today, so I'm kind of jealous. My Minnesotan, even though I'm in Tennessee most of my adult life, my Minnesotan would like to come play in your snowflakes.
Oh, well, there's not very much of it, which is interesting because, of course, I'm a Californian. So the snow is kind of a very unique offering for me, just because I happen to be here in Washington State at the moment. So the Californian in me loves the snow because we're not used to it at all. In fact, I'm not planning on driving anywhere today. I just don't drive in.
Yeah, that's probably better for the people on the road that you stay put if you're uncomfortable with it and don't need to get out. But
I
wow,
think I got a call from my insurance company too. I think they said, please don't drive today.
Duly noted, right?
Exactly.
So let's hear about you. I was really blessed to hang out with you a little bit while we were in Orlando. It was, yeah, Orlando. And get to know you, hear some of your story. And I thought it was really wonderful, in part because, so many people, they're in what seems like a very conventional world, and then suddenly things start to change, sometimes very rapidly, because they start to have an experience of new information. You can call it waking up, you can call it expansion, like whatever that is, and it really can set your world upside down. And so that was part of what really stuck with me, of how valuable that piece is, that people should be aware of, because it's happening to a lot of people right now, for a lot of people right now. And I think it's so exciting for you who've been at this a little while to come in and share now from that beginning perspective, and where it's led you to. So let's
Absolutely. And what's funny about that, as you recall, is that we were sitting at a table of people who got to listen to the story, and I didn't spare details. I didn't edit it for them, but they weren't exactly ready for it yet either.
Right.
And so I've learned to become a little bit more open about this part of myself and allow it to land where it's meant to land, because in some cases it's planting seeds. Everyone will have a spiritual awakening in the next little bit of time, because the world is moving into an awakened state.
Yes.
And in order to be in it, you will be awakened. And that's the natural part of who we are anyway. For any part in us that looks at a person, says that person's awakened, that person's not, that person is, that person's not, we must realize that every person is a divine being in the avatar of a human body. And at the point that is divinely assigned to each being, that person will also have that awakening as well, regardless of how they're showing up in this present moment.
Yeah, and all in their right time. And that's the
Hmm.
beauty of it. That's the grace that we can give each other, is that we can share our seeds, um,
Hmm.
so that when that time comes, they know they're not alone. That's how I like to look at it, that they know that there's somebody they can refer to, that oh yeah, that conversation, right? So yeah, it's so graceful knowing that it's going to happen in your right time. And there's
Exactly.
layers and layers and layers, just when you think you've gone as far as there's nothing more in me to expand, you find out, yes, there is, right? And so it's
Yeah.
the beautiful, beautiful journey, beautiful game.
It is. And the humorous part of this to me is that I remember when the angels first came to me. And one of the first things I thought is like, oh boy, I'm never going to tell anyone about this because this is going to sound crazy to them. And now, of course, I tell everybody. But I do remember my initial reaction is like, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to tell anyone about this.
Yeah.
And oh, how that switched, right?
Yeah.
With a little bit of time. So that's super exciting.
Yeah. I know that a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now, when I started receiving some very specific messages, and I spent most of a year, almost a year and a half, being very, very, very uncomfortable. I'm super cool with everybody else receiving messages, channeling, whatever you want to call it, right? Having conversations with whomever, uh whatever shows up in spirit, uh but it was super uncomfortable, and it took me, and it was almost, for me, it seemed to be get to the point of being able to share, do the initial
Hmm.
sharing, and then the pressure was off, right? And so it now, when it arises again naturally, that's beautiful. If it doesn't, if for me it was, I had to move past the discomfort, and that's where I am in this moment, you know. Um I
Well,
did
if
that,
this
and if it shows up again as being important to continue with it, I will, you know.
Well, if this helps, remember there is only unity. So there are no separate beings. There are no separate beings. There's a perception of a separate being here in
Right.
this planet, but there's also no such thing as separation between us and the divine realm. So your angels and spirit guides are you in another form. And
Exactly.
so they can only want the best for you because they are you.
Yeah.
They are you in a perfected form. Very often, I ask people to consider that, perhaps your guardian angel is the version of you
Yes.
in the realm of perfection and unconditional love that stayed behind to watch over you while you took an experience of forgetting your perfection so that you could be guided along the way to rediscover it. But that piece of you that was left as your sort of guidance or your GPS, it is you.
Yeah.
And there is a unity with that part of you and the archangels and all that is. So once we realize that the voice of another is the voice of ourselves, there's a familiarity there that is very much based in unity.
Yes. Yes, very much. Our language is, um pointed towards separation. And yes, thank you for pointing that out, I guess, because it's often we refer to, somebody receiving messages, or channeling, or whatever you identify that as, and downloads, right? And this is simply information that's available to us, and it comes to us in that, for me, I had never actually separated. I had always felt a soul connect, like a straight connection. to source, to my
Mm-hmm.
source, to my highest aspects. And then, so it was very interesting to come in and see it as um, a soul collective around me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but anyways, this is that's a thing that may happen for people, and it may be confusing, and it's really helpful to have honest conversation about it when you have the chance with somebody who, and us showing up little or a lot in any way we can to share our experience of this um, from the heart, and also allow um, room for people not to get it in that moment. That, you know, it's just, it's so gracious, the whole thing, if we let it be. Yeah.
Well, and it's perfect the way that it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. And especially as we go on this journey, we really do learn not to idealize anything,
Yeah.
especially where you're at. We're all on a journey, and we all have goals, and we all have desires that we'd like to manifest, things that we'd like to materialize. And it never goes the way that we think it's going to. So it's really important not to idealize what it should be, how it should get there, or anything like that, because I can guarantee you it's not going to show up that way. And yet, the way that it does is even more beautiful. And it's even more indicative of being connected constantly to the quantum field or to the divine realm. And that's what's exciting about all of this, is that there's this constant state of participating in that unity. And it's familiar to us because that's where we come from. And we've spent a certain amount of time, let's say time, and that's another topic because that's pure
Yeah.
illusion.
Yeah.
But we've spent a certain amount of time uh, forgetting who we are. And then as sort of glimpses of it start to come, we get really excited. I haven't heard anyone ever that's not excited about getting signs or feeling more connected to their authentic self. There's a homecoming there, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about when this first started showing up for you in your life, because it sounded like it
Yeah,
kind of came out of left field and
it did.
boom, baby.
Yes, it did. Yeah, well, I mean, it appears to be that way, except for, yes, except for now I can see how it was designed to come in at a certain time
Yeah.
so that I could have a certain amount of growth with it before I was really being called upon to utilize it. And that is, this is about 2 decades ago. And I probably would be the last person that you would have expected to encounter that. I was very success and goal oriented. I was a very successful real estate agent in Southern California, and just very much in pursuit of, you know, what you would consider, you know, the material success and house and, you know, financial means and things like that. And I had a couple of huge setbacks all at once, which made me feel really defeated. So defeated that I had a bit of let's say, a reaction, like a little bit of a breakdown or a little bit of a meltdown. And initially, when I started having this meltdown, I could see the emptiness and everything that I was pursuing, because it didn't have any true way of actually filling me up in that moment when I was experiencing these setbacks. And so I actually asked God, can I leave? Can I go to sleep? Will you please take me? I don't want to be here anymore. If this kind of thing can show up in my life, and not to mention all the mean and horrible people in this world and the things that happen in here that are not good, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Can you please, can I close my eyes? Will you please just bring me back home? I just want to go back there. Of course, I wouldn't do anything about that, but I just
Yeah.
said a little prayer. And the minute I said that prayer, I knew I wasn't going to get my wish. It's like, it doesn't really happen that easily. So I was like, all right, let me switch it up a little bit. then if I'm supposed to stay here, then I want to see my angels. I'm told I have guides and angels. I want to be able to see them. I want to be able to have a relationship. I want to be able to talk to them. So bring them in, but not in a way that's so ethereal that I have to guess that maybe it is and maybe it isn't. I want something tangible. I want something that will convince me that they're there. And I think I added something like, because they're not doing a very good job anyway. Poor angels. And so the minute I said that, something overcame me where I felt peace. And then I felt literally like something was touching me all over my body. And I could feel warmth and energy, and I could feel energy moving around me, encircling me, basically. And it was very loving, and it was very comfortable to be in that. It was very fearless. And then I heard something inside, a voice that was speaking to me and not a voice that was me, that said, Seph, everything is not just going to be okay, but it's going to be better than okay. And I thought, oh, cool. So I fell asleep peacefully and I woke up. And the first thing I realized is like, did I dream that or did it really happen? Okay. So I was like, okay. So I go to get dressed and then I hear something whiz by my ear and I hear hello. And I'm like, hello. And that's where it started, where I was able to, hear them speak to me after that. So throughout time, what has occurred is, initially they started by talking to me and sharing with me things that would prove itself right, something that would happen in the day, or a bit of guidance and that sort of thing. And then when I was rock solid on the fact that I was speaking to them, which also came through a really cool, miraculous experience. I was, I held a post office box in Laguna Beach, California. And every day, almost every day, I would go check my mail there. And I remember at some point in the process, I had learned that the angels will use feathers and coins to catch our attention or to speak to us or to give us a sign. And I was coming out of the post office and I literally saw a feather materialize in thin air in front of
Yeah.
me. There was no bird flying above, nothing like that. And it basically started to come down and then it drifted to the left of me. And as I looked to the left of me in the alley of the post office, there was a metaphysical bookstore. And I had never seen it there, even though I had collected my mail there for 7 years. And I decided that the feather was trying to take me there. So I went over, I looked in the window, and there were all these profiles of these, readers that would do psychic readings at this metaphysical bookstore. And one of them was one specifically that worked with the angels. And I thought, aha, maybe I'm supposed to talk to this person. Well, she worked on Tuesdays. It happened to be a Tuesday. And it was during, her shift when she was working. I could see that she was there. So I walked in and I asked if she was available. And at that time, because this is 2 decades ago, they had like literally just a written calendar on the desk. And I could see that the 2:30 slot, it was like 2:25 or whatever. I could see that the 2:30 slot had been basically a line had been crossed out. She says, "You're just in time. Someone just canceled for that slot." So when I went back there, I sat in front of this woman. I didn't say anything. She said a little prayer and she looked around me and she said, "Do you have any idea how many angels are around you?" And then she stopped for a second. She said, "They say that they're around you, but you go in and out of believing whether they're there or not." This person's a very dear friend of mine to this day, and I was definitely meant to meet her. But that was pivotal because it was at that time that I left. I said, all right, I get it. This is a genuine gift. What do you want me to do for you? What would you like me to do for you? It's not everybody who can talk to angels. What can I do for you? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you'd love to reach people. How can I help you? Well, how can I be in the right place at the right time to serve? How can I utilize this gift? What can I do with it? It's here for a reason. What can I do with it?
Yeah.
And they said to me, your world is about to change. It's going to become heaven on earth. That's what we call the ascension or the new earth. They
Yeah.
said, your world is about to change, and your work that you signed up to do in this world is pivotal to be helpful during this time in human history. And for the next 2 decades, they would help me understand many different things: quantum principles, unity, um, how energy flows, how it works, how we manifest, what's the purpose of this up-leveled octave here. I mean, it's not the first time it's happened. We do have
Yeah.
other civilizations that occupy this same planet that we can't even see because they're in another frequency. Okay. And
Yeah.
so, that's about to happen to us. Yeah. So they, for the last 20 years, they've been teaching me about this and revealing to me what my role is, my post here on Earth, let's say,
Yes.
and helping me to understand that. And one of the things that, would come up occasionally when I would share with people what I was getting with this connection was like, oh, that's never going to happen in our lifetime. That's such a huge shift. It's not going to happen for
Right.
hundreds, if not thousands of years. And I said, it can't. It can't take that long. Why would the angels come to me, to prepare for something that's going to happen hundreds or thousands of years from now? It doesn't make sense to me. And I started meeting other channels who had somehow or another found themselves falling into a connectivity with angelic source and getting the same exact information. And
Yeah.
it was later that I discovered the works of like Dolores Cannon, who would
Yeah.
get that also from her subjects in hypnosis. Dolores Cannon has left us in, I think, 2014, but she comes to me in my dreams because she watches over me to do this work. She's very much about the ascension. At
Yeah.
any
She
rate,
that's it's so interesting. She comes into so many of these conversations, and she feels like this gift I'm going to unwrap at some point. Sometimes I just see like a minute
oh,
of a video. I've not been led down the path of her books, but I feel her, like it's almost like I don't even have to. All right. There's just this beautiful transmission from the heart that I receive every time I just hear her voice. Actually, it's something in her voice, and it's like all I need.
it's a good thing that you say that because everything is transmission, by the way.
Yeah.
When I do my work through hypnotherapy, or when I do readings or teach classes, I teach people how to communicate with their angels. I start teaching people how to communicate through the angels, and they start manifesting miracles. And it's like, oh, duh. Of course, that's what
Yeah.
happened to me when I started talking to them. I started manifesting all these miracles, and that's exactly what happens when we're so securely fastened into that realm, to that
Yeah.
quantum realm. But uh, when they started talking to me about this, it seemed like a topic that was irrelevant, about what we call the new earth or the ascension of
Oh yeah.
consciousness. But they explained to me what would happen. And they also painted a picture of what that was like. And trust me, it's nothing like what our earth is like right now. And the experience. And there will be a lot of things that are gone that don't serve humanity, such as our government, the corporate government structure, the corporate money structure, the banking system.
Yes.
The We'll have the ability to heal ourselves, so we won't need the allopathic medical system, and we'll
um
have
uh,
a
that like that is right now. That's not a future thing. We
yeah,
are
yeah,
it
we are
we
there.
are able to. It simply is something you begin to work with, and the more you do it, the more it expands. And that's part of the thing that I feel very, very strongly about as part of my role, is to help spread that. It's so
Hmm.
simple, so practical, but it requires you showing up a lot most of the
Yeah,
time. There
I
are
believe.
there are there yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it's not 5 years from now. It is now. It probably always has been, but it really is now. The more people can draw in, so
I've been
into
drawing
the
into that too. Yeah. And in manifesting perfect health with the power of your connectivity to the divine. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And so they started explaining the new earth to me. And the conversation did seem horribly relevant for a very, very long time. And there were times that I even wondered, like, what am I doing this for? It's a long time to carry this, but every single day was an up level in the information, was an up level in understanding it. And then in January of 2020, I got a message from them that it was time to step into my work, that something pivotal would happen to begin to shift and collapse the old structures,
Yeah.
and that would invite in this groundswell of conscious energy. And then
What year was that again?
January of 2020, so 3
Yeah.
months later in
Yeah.
March, I was asked to go home because of the lockdowns. And as I was asked to go home because of lockdowns, I knew that this was that and not this sort of unipolar experience that it appeared to be,
Sure.
to the masses. So
Right.
I knew that it was connected to this ascension that the angels had been talking about for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And now, of course, the work that I do is like an activation. So that energy broadcast is really more potent than you realize. I did a podcast interview yesterday, and the guy's like, I feel so high, like consciously high. I feel like I'm in this timeless state. And that's what people feel when we do our work now, if we're connected to at this level, is that literally we're taking people and activating them into integrating their full self.
Yes. Yes.
And we're stepping aside and letting our angels and the higher realms come in and do this work, which is, whether I teach a class or have a one-on-one session with someone, that's the experience, is that I just step aside and give it to the angels, and then I watch and I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, this is
Yeah.
fun to play with
Yeah.
them.
That really is that sense of highness. It's
Mm-hmm.
been really elevated the last few weeks, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And even Monday was this interesting dip down, right, for me, of all these doubts coming in, that, like, I'm like, this feels like 3 years ago. And I noticed, and that's the thing, we can look around and notice, oh, this is like a wave that's rolling through. This wasn't actually even mine to carry. It was just this wave
Mm-hmm.
washing away that period of time. We are so more expansive in every way. Uh, and when you start to, it's actually quite a joy to feel that. I mean, are you physically feeling it and experiencing it yourself? I
All
say
the time.
physically, all the bodies, right? All the bodies.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it's going and going and going. This spaciousness, it's incredible. And
All the time. It's such a heightened state of well-being.
yeah,
And it has a purpose, though, as well, because it is an indicator that we are connected to the higher realms of consciousness.
yeah.
And so it's not just a feeling like getting high, those days are behind me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm from Southern California. Okay. I mean,
Oh,
it wasn't a big phase, but I had a little phase of that. But it
yeah,
gives you context for that heightened.
yeah,
It's actually an artificial heightened state of being, but at any rate, it is a genuine heightened state of being, and sometimes I call it being consciously high or consciously drunk.
yeah,
But there, other spiritual practices will have names for it, like Shakti, and Sumati. And there's all these kinds
yeah,
of names for that heightened state of being that comes from really being connected to the higher energetic or higher conscious realms. And, when we're there, that's when we're connected to the source of our power. This is where we start creating miracles. This is where we start creating shifts um, that put us on the path of our purpose, that resolve challenges that we have, but also that put us in our best life experience. Lately, it seems that the wave has been really all about playing and relaxing
Yes.
and
Yes.
being connected and knowing that that is just as important, because uh, a lot of burnout, let's say, happens because somehow or another this interesting paradigm crept into our culture that we're only as good we're only as valuable as our work and
Yeah.
our accomplishments. And of
Yeah.
course, we work double time, triple time, and we've got coaches out there, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and work until 11 o'clock at night. That is not balanced.
No,
And the next
it's
thing you
not.
know, you're feeling like,
Oops.
why do I need to sneak into the kitchen and eat a package of cookies, to
Yep.
kind of feel good or whatever? And it's literally because having fun is a need. And if that need is unmet, it's going to manifest itself in some other way. And
Yeah.
rest and relaxation and recharge is a need. And if that need is unmet, then all of a sudden, when we start to get sniffly and we have to lay in bed for a week, you know, it's like they're saying, no, you need to lay here and
We're
recharge.
going to get you to rest and relax one way or another.
Mhm.
And
You might as well do it willingly.
yeah, and
Yes.
enjoy the experience,
Yes.
instead of going through the pain. Yeah,
Right.
it's interesting. All of my personal messages coming in are very much, this is going to be a season of great playfulness, a lot of play. Like, I mean, like, I met when I went to this event in Dallas, and I've never really been called to sort of inner child work. I feel like I had an extremely awesome childhood, quite honestly. Like, it was just fun. And there weren't a lot of pain points in it. And but we did this exercise and I got to meet my inner 5-year-old. Like I was, it wasn't even my inner, it was like I was taken back to being 5 years old. And I was a rock star, man. I was like a cool little kid. Right at 5, there was this like, and that's where I feel like I'm coming into, is like, let's like shake off this adulting, right? And let's come into the sacredness of that innocence, of that, and that playfulness. Like, get out there, shake your booty in the living room, laugh, 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 um
And and that is the thing.
that's it.
Yeah. And that is the thing that appears to have evaporated over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, you know, several years ago, just before the 3 years ago, I was working as an actor and a writer in the comedy genre. And I love comedy and I love to laugh, not at other people's expense, though, but I do love to laugh. And there's such great ways to be able to laugh. And laughter is so sacred. It really is.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I noticed over the last few years is the amount of people that have gone into such intensity. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, because wherever anyone has gone in the last 3 years, emotionally speaking, is part of their healing and part of their journey.
Yeah.
But people who used to be able to laugh, who have lost that sense of humor, it's difficult when there's not so many people to play with and laugh with anymore, because it's all serious and, fear and all that.
Yeah.
So, laughter and that fun is such an important piece of it, because it takes us into higher frequency. Notice if you, when you could be having some serious situation that's bothering you and you start laughing and you start to lose whatever it is that's riding around on your back. And you're like, I don't want it back. I don't, any seriousness or any tension in your body, you don't want it back afterwards, because you're like,
Yeah.
oh, and it's a bit of a clearing. And
Yeah.
sometimes what I have people do when I know that they've been kidnapped or hijacked by their head, by their mind,
Yeah.
I make them laugh. And then somehow or another, I point out something, and then they don't go back to being hijacked. It's the one way to circumvent or short circuit when the ego hijacks us, is just to start laughing. And if we can't find something funny, or we don't feel drawn to find something funny, I tell people, like, just do a fake laugh. And the minute you do a fake laugh, it actually makes you really laugh, because now you're laughing at yourself for the fake laugh.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then you're doing the real laugh. So I guess it's a way of inducing laughter, right?
Here, let's give our best fake laugh right now, Seph.
Yeah.
Now,
Which might,
whoever's listening to this, it's your turn. Take a
yes,
pause and give
exactly.
yourself a laugh and an inner smile and an outer smile, and bring it in. You will feel yourself go through the roof very
Right.
quickly. I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah.
The,
So did you just thumbs up on
no,
purpose?
I do not
I
know
love
what's
it.
going on. Every time I've been on here for the last 3 days, it's like these this is the third day in a row that's happened, and there might no reason for it to go off.
I gotta tell you, that thumbs up was very synchronistic,
Yeah.
for those that are listening to the audio version of it. The thumbs up just went on her
I mean, it
screen. It
was
was,
like waving and everything.
oh,
It's seeing my hand. It's doing it again.
yeah,
It's hello, hello, friends, whoever's with us.
it is. It's
That's
funny.
awesome.
I love it.
Oh
I love
man,
it.
I've had orbs show up on a couple of these, but not thumbs up on recordings. So
Yeah, it's stranger things have been happening too, as we're integrating more and more into, people call it the 5D or the quantum realm, but we definitely are noticing that we're integrating into a more powerful version of all this.
yeah,
And it's palpable, it's noticeable, and that's part of it, is some of these just odd and unexplainable situations with our technology, where the thumbs go up and all
yeah.
that good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I love it. So you were doing comedy. Any chance of that making a comeback? I don't
Well,
know if you were doing comedy, but you were part of the comedy scene, it sounds like. So
so I wrote, it's funny, I wrote a bunch of comedies, pilots, and it was very fun. It's very fun to write, even if the writing goes nowhere. And I remember one time I was speaking with Archangel Gabriel, and he was just sort of like clapping at the writing and the creativity. And he said, I don't care what you do, if it makes it to the screen or not.
yeah,
It lives because you created it, and it actually furthers you. So I would like to get back into the writing in that way, but I am working on filmmaking for a documentary film about consciousness. Oh, I'm just reminded, they're films as in plural, not
yeah,
singular. But there's some filmmaking that I meant to do in that space as well. And I am a SAG-AFTRA actor, but I don't audition. I do no longer have an agent or a manager. Funny story, as you know, because I squeezed in next to you because of the tarot cards
yeah,
that we created, and the artist that I worked with, who's also an angel channel, happened to work with my manager back in the day. Now it's funny because of synchronicity. I didn't know that when I started working with her, because the angels guided me to utilize one of my film and television networking resources to locate the artist for the cards for the project. And I thought, well, that's an odd place, but the angels are always right. So I listened to them. And sure enough, I manifested Rochelle, who is the artist. And we were in this triangulation experience with the angels, because I told her the concepts, and sometimes she would be receiving them as I was receiving something, and it was quite divine. But through our connecting, I had discovered that she worked for my manager at the time that I used to audition. And it's funny because the day that I met my manager, I went in to sign the contract, and behind her was a bookshelf with all of these angels. And I said to her, "Do you like the angels?" And she said, "Yes, I love them a lot." And she said, in fact, and she pulls out this great big book and she says, "I was a PR rep for this book that a friend of mine wrote, which is this great big book about angels and you know who they are and all that kind of good stuff." I said, "That is fantastic." I said, "I talked to them." And she said, "That explains why I can sense that energy in you." And that's really amazing. I love that. So it's interesting that the artist that I would find for this tarot card project, and because the angels were involved in this, because we channeled the angels to produce this, they told us that there would be an activation in it, in the cards. And
Sure.
so when people receive the cards, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can feel the energy in them." They can feel an activation from the angels. But I found it very interesting that the one person that I shared in common with the artist, that I was guided to find and meet, that
Yes.
the angels were unifying us in that moment as well, through
Yeah.
Sherry, my old manager.
And it's so, we're looking at this world through sort of these practical eyes, right? These practical lenses. Oh, I went here, and this happened. And then, like, at some point, some wonderfully weird and wild synchronicity happens, and we find out there's so much in play for so much longer than we can. But it's these lovely, it requires us being willing to follow the angel dust, right? Follow the, well, that has a different
Hmm.
connotation from years ago, but
Well,
like follow
not anymore.
follow
I don't.
the sparkles, follow the curiosity, follow the voice in your heart, in your head, right? That is our. And when it seems so silly sometimes, or so like, I can't do that, those resistances of how will it look, man, we can just, that's often where the juiciest juice is for us, if we can simply go towards it, you know. Not always, sometimes there's a reason, but like, we know we have that beautiful inner knowing. And when you can turn off this clunky thing and hear those
Yeah.
other people's voices and tune into yourself, you there's a light that will take you where you need to be. That's so great. I mean, it's great. Those are my favorite kind of stories.
Yeah. Well, early on when I was communicating with them, the type of job that I had, I could be anywhere I wanted or do anything that I wanted almost at any particular time because I made my own schedule. And so right away, they started asking me to go places and do things. And I learned right away that one, it would defy logic, because if it were logical, I'd already be doing it. And right. And so, right. I love that you got that right in the middle of the head. Um, and I started noticing that every time I heard them ask me to do something, of course, there was some reason. And so afterward, I was like, oh, well, anytime they come in and ask me to do something, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. It starts to expand and expand and expand. Recently I got this sense of like, I'm supposed to go to New Mexico. I don't know why, but I'm supposed to go to New
Yeah.
Mexico. And a week later, through Podmatch, um, someone connected with me for podcasting, and they happened to be in New Mexico. And I said, well, of course you showed up. The angels told me, a week ago that I'm supposed to go to New Mexico. And she says,
Yeah.
you want to come here? Great. She set me up with someone who has a center, and I ended up going in there and doing an event and seeing clients and being announced and things like that. And I
Yeah.
went out there and met some amazing people, and some most miraculous situations happened, including I was driving around and I went to go get some water, and I end up at this gas station, and I ended up meeting this person, this guy who owns a gym, and he's super awake,
Yeah.
but doesn't have many people to talk to. And we ended up somehow or another connecting, and now we have this amazing friendship.
Yeah.
And so it's so funny how all these things happen. And then I'm like, of course, there's the angels again,
Yeah.
guiding us to do these amazing things, which is why I teach people how to communicate with them. Like I teach a class right now. It's a 4-week intensive, and um, it's with me, and it's small group. So it's kind of as close to one-on-one as you can get with
Right.
a kind of a it's kind of set up. We learn how to tune in, we learn how to receive, we learn how to act on it, we learn how to do what we need to do when things get challenging and we can't hear them anymore. And we cover all that, and we have assignments in that, which then end up evoke miracles. But interestingly enough, um, when people participate in that, they start noticing that the level of just everyday miracles really start to um, it's exponential, the increase.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Um, I remember for the year that I studied A Course in Miracles, the one, and then I have a good friend who teaches it. And the one thing that always stayed with me is there are no miracles too small and there are no miracles too big,
Hmm.
right? And it's extraordinary when you open yourself to that. The
Right.
other day, I mean, just and it, when you see it and you can just be grateful for it, it brings in more. The other day, I went to this coffee house, and you know, miracle, not miracle, right? It's so ordinary. I found a dime laying on the floor, right? But I brought that up because I wanted to take a photo of that and notice that the universe tossed a dime my way. Give me that 10 cents for something. That's a tiny, tiny, tiny thing. But you lean into the gratitude. The gratitude for that was as great as the gratitude for so many
Hmm.
larger things. And in my experience, then it starts to uh, multiply,
Hmm.
ripple,
Yeah.
just little tiny things. Is that a miracle? I don't know. You tell me, right? So if people are interested in connecting with you or taking a class with you or doing a session with you, how do they do that? What's the best way?
Super easy. My website is talktomyangels.com, and the two is spelled T-O, talktomyangels.com. If they're on Instagram, they can find me at talktomyangels.com. I'm sorry, at talktomyangels, and DM me there.
Beautiful. That'll all be in the show notes for anybody listening on the audio, and if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be down in the description. Um, so yeah, this has been great, and I I I did get to see this deck, this beautiful tarot, and it's kind of a tarot slash oracle deck, right? You
It
said that
is,
it
yes.
you said it was a little different than a traditional tarot deck, but probably in part because of the activation aspect of it.
It is because of that. It's called the
Yeah.
Ascension with the Angels Tarot deck. And it is not only does it follow the traditional tarot path of 78 cards, the the artwork for each of the cards is the angelic interpretation of those particular cards, or the angelic meanings of those cards. So you can use them in a typical spread. I have replaced some of the cards like the devil and the high priestess with fear and the intuition card. There's a few of them that just got renamed to their actual meaning. to sort of soften them up and gellify them a bit. But also, there's a booklet that comes with the cards, and with that is all a channeled message that has a conjunction to the meaning of the card, so that you can actually just pull one per day as an oracle card and read the what the angels have to say, and allow that to work as an oracle for the day as well too.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. It's on my list for a particular thing I'm doing to eventually turn that in. And I'm going to lean into how beautiful you brought together, brought your vision together with an artist, not knowing who would support that with, help you bring that into the world. So that gives me inspiration. I write all the time, but bringing in some sort of collaborator or partner for artwork is like a whole other level. Where
Yeah,
we
well,
can come together.
yeah. Well, let me tell you about that too, because when she first gave me the first couple of designs, I absolutely loved them, and she started to trickle some designs in, and I didn't. And I heard the angel said, "Leave her alone and let her create. They're working with us." And I did. She said, "Do you want me to send you any more designs?" I said, "No, let's just see them when they're done." And I absolutely loved them. And even the cards that I didn't love, when she had trickled them in, I could see how it was all a part of the greater whole. So it was a really amazing lesson in trusting that when you're working with the divine, you're working with the divine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we
Hmm.
can get out of the way.
Get out. That's what I was told in no uncertain words. Get out of her way.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Well,
Well, great to see you. Thank you for
yeah.
this.
Thank you
Hmm.
for coming and hanging out and sharing your beautiful light. And wherever it takes you next, maybe there'll be snow, maybe there won't, but
I'm hearing Hawaii, actually, and I'm not kidding.
so am I.
So, yeah.
Like
Hmm.
it's pinging big time. I've never been.
Hmm.
So that's
Oh,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. We'll chat later about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, take care, Seph.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you.